بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
So now the next thing we'll try to see the setup of the topology. If you go back to the topic, now this is what our topology looks like, where we are trying to configure L3 switches, which will be configuring with HSRP. So this is going to be my topology, which I'll be using. So I'll be using two multi-layer switches and this switch and probably connecting some computers. Okay, so I already showed you the same thing in the EVNG software. So I just wanted to have some idea about in the GNS3 also it's going to be similar. The only thing will change is the setup. Okay, so this is my remote server where GNS3 is installed. Make sure that your server, the GNS3 VM is running, because at the back end we are using the IWSV images for the switches. So make sure that your GNS3 is integrated and it is running. You can see the symbol indicates that it is running already. Now, as per my topology, I need to connect my devices. Let's try to connect the switch. Now, here I already got this IWSV switch, which I set up today only. So we have these switches, and I'm going to make them as the switch 1, and this is going to be my switch 2. So once you set up the image or upload, it's going to be the same. Okay, so once the image is uploaded, probably again the same process. You need to go to file, import appliance, and then you have to select this IWSV image, which is an appliance file you have to download. Okay, so which is something already we did, and these images hopefully they are working. I'm going to set up the same thing with switch 3 as well here. And additionally, on the host side, if you want, you can use the VPCs or you can use the routers, whichever the device you want. VPCs will be less processing it will use, so probably that's going to be easier for us if I'm using the PCs. And for the sake of verification, whether if you are verifying based on the load balancing or GLBP or any protocol, we need some multiple VPCs to connect. Okay, so that's my topology, and then we need a router. So for the router, you can use any normal router, or you can use an L3 switch, or you can use any IWS router or IWSV router. Yeah, so it's up to you. You can just decide which one you want. Let me just go with an IWSV router, which is, and hopefully this IWSV router is working. Anyway, I'll try to check if that's working or not. Most likely that should be working. So we got the router 2 connected. Now coming back to the topology here, if you just come back to the topology, we need to make some connections. And for the PCs, so 21, 22, and 20 are the ports which will be using. Okay, so I'll try to use the same ports, or again, as I said, you will not get the same exact ports what we have been using. So we need to make some adjustments as needed. Okay, so depending upon the lab, we'll try to make some adjustments here. Because in the real switches, you will have the ports starting from G0/1 to 24. That is something possible on the real switches. But when you're using the IWSV images, whether on the EVNG or the GNS3, you probably get the ports starting from G0/1 to 3, G0/0, 0, 1 to 3, and then again G1/0, 1 to 3, like that. Combination of four ports. So we'll try to connect them, and we'll see how it goes. So the first thing, we'll try to connect G0/0. Anyway, let's see what are the ports we have to use. Okay, so we'll try to connect the similar ports what we did in our previous labs, like in the HSRP and EVNG also. We use a similar thing. I'm trying to use the same thing here. So G0/2 goes and connects to G0/0 on this side. And I think the port which I'm connecting G0/1 is going and connecting to the switch 3, G0/1. And then the G0/2 goes and connects to G0/2 on the switch 2 side. And for additional connection, we can add one more connection between switch 1 and switch 2, which will be again the trunk links which we'll be using. Okay, G1/0 And then these ports, we can just go ahead and connect to the VPCs, connecting to switch. Now here I can just go ahead and connect any random ports. It's up to you. So I'll try to go with the G1 by 0 or G1 by 1, G1 by 0, okay, G1 by 0. This can be anything, but we just need to keep in mind while we are configuring the VLANs, this is something required later on. So G1 by 0, 1, 2, 3, these are the specific ports which I'm using for connecting the devices here, okay? So we just need to make sure that we start the devices, and hopefully all the devices are running fine. So I'll try to quickly console and do some verifications to make sure that the devices are booting up. The same thing with the switch 2, switch 3, as well as the router 2. Now, once you set up this topology, probably you don't need to repeat this again. Now, the next part, what we'll do is we'll try to quickly move on with the initial configurations. Now, once we do these things, the next part, let's try to see the initial, the pre-configurations part we'll try to do. Now, in terms of pre-configurations, the pre-configurations remains the same, because once you start the topology and once you go to the CLI, it's not going to be a different, okay? So you can just say like, we can just go ahead and use the same pre-configurations what we have been using for the devices.